If you will you state your full name for me?
I'm Esther Buschbaum.
Okay. And you understand that we're using this for both archives and also educational purposes and as part of an exhibit. Okay. Were you born in Savannah?
No, Atlanta.
Okay. And what's it like growing up Jewish in the South?
Yeah. Didn't have many run-ins. I had a couple of little incidents, but nothing big, nothing frequent.
When you were going to school, did you go to Jewish schools or public schools?
I went to public school. I went to Sunday school with, for Jewish education, but I went to a public school.
Was it unusual for Jewish children to be part of the public school, or did a lot of Jewish children go to school with you?
No, I think the majority of children went to public school.
When did you come to Savannah?
In 1958.
During World War II, was your family actively involved?
Actively involved.
Did you have relatives that were in the military?
I had an uncle who was in the military, yes.
Okay. And by the time of 58, Israel would have already been a state.
I'm sorry?
Israel would have already been a state.
Yes.
Do you have memories of the UN vote?
I do. And a funny thing, I mentioned to Sharon Paz, who was living here a few years ago, something about, I never really learned the new words to Hatikva, and she said, "What do you mean new words?" She was so young, she wasn't even aware that there was a few words were changed after the state of Israel became a state.
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because actually I have spoken to people who said that that there were many people who were ever hopeful that Israel would become a state, and that although not everybody in Savannah wanted to show loyalty, divided loyalty, that they were very proud when they sang the song. Did you ever experience anything through home or synagogue where people you were around were worried that other Americans would be concerned about your divided loyalty?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. In moving to Savannah, why did you move to Savannah?
Because I got married and my husband is from Savannah.
Okay. And when you moved here, what was life like?
What was life like?
What was life like? You set up housekeeping, you had children,
right,
you belonged
right.
to...
I taught school for a year and then I started to have a family.
Okay. All right, hold on just a moment. Let me grab... Okay. So, I show the Zoom, but I don't have the
sound bar.
The sound bar. And without it. Huh. Okay. Oh. All right.
Yeah.
Is that good enough for the sound quality? If I can get it to the Zoom? Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Okay. I
want to say
apologize.
something that may or may not be relevant to anything.
Okay.
You were talking about going to religious school. I went on Sunday. Anita O'Dresen's father, Cantor Schwartzman, when we had assemblies at Sunday school, where all the classes went into one room for maybe 15, 20 minutes, Cantor Schwartzman would teach us Palestinian songs that the people who were working on kibbutz, the kibbutzniks, would sing. I never really liked the songs. They were very repetitive and not terribly musical, but we did learn these songs that the people working on farms in Israel, in what is now Israel, would sing.
I think there are a lot of people who don't recognize the fact that Palestine is where the Jews live. And it wasn't always called Israel, and people who are only aware of the modern conflict, they don't regard that. but she actually has told me stories before also of building forts and pretending that they were on guard duty at a kibbutz. But that's interesting. Did you know her there? Or
Anita?
Anita,
Yes,
growing up.
in fact, I did. She dated my uncle, my mother's youngest brother, and my sister and I were always planning that they would get married. They didn't, which was a big disappointment to me because I liked Anita.
But you ended up in the same town.
Yeah.
Did that happen a lot? That people from one small southern town, well, Atlanta wasn't small,
No.
but from one southern town would find that they had relatives or friends in another southern town?
I don't think I knew anybody from Savannah until I met Aaron. But I have friends from Atlanta, in addition to Anita, who married guys from Savannah, like Linda Gold Friedman and Sharon Silver Galen, and a few others. Diane Piasek Kerr.
Did you ever go to any of the formal dances that were sponsored by Jewish organizations to get young people together?
You mean in Atlanta?
In Atlanta. I know here it was the Ballyhoo, and I think Athens was the Coronet.
Ballyhoo was in Atlanta.
That was Atlanta?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And I did go. And then we also had AZA and BBG and so forth.
Were you
dances.
active in those organizations?
I was in BBG.
Were your children, when were they active in those organizations when they were growing up?
Not very much. My daughters were in BBG. My son never went to ACA. In fact, we lived in Magnolia Park, and he had several friends, Jeff Cole and Gary Caslow and David Levy, a few close friends who were close neighbors who belonged to the temple. And when they became adolescents, suddenly there was the temple youth group, which they joined, and we belonged to the AA. And so we weren't members, and I called someone and asked about it. I said, could he belong to the temple youth group, because all of his friends were going there. And they said, well, if you want to join the temple, yes. So no, I didn't want to join the temple, and he didn't go to the temple youth group. But now I think the situation is different. I think they're happy to take kids from Savannah, and I think, well, it ought to be that way. It's not a large city. Whatever you can do to get the Jewish kids together, I think is admirable. And likewise, I've seen in years past the conservative synagogue had an organization that brought in people who didn't belong to the AA. That's the way it ought to be.
You're not the first person to tell me that in years past there was a lack of fluidity between the three synagogues and the JEA. In your experience, were the friends that you made at the Agudath Achim, which I assume is where you've always participated, were they equally as comfortable at the JEA, or was the JEA pretty much the haunt of one of the other synagogues?
I don't know that I have an answer for that. I think we all went to the JEA.
Did you go to variety shows?
Not particularly.
Did you participate in one type of activity at the JEA over other types?
I was a brownie leader there.
Tell me about the troop, please.
What can I tell you? We met, we did little things. I enjoyed it. I stopped leading the group when, at a certain point, I had help certain days a week, and so I had to be a leader on the day that I had help coming in to stay with my younger children, and it conflicted with the days of the Hebrew school, so they were eager to get somebody who could come on a day when Hebrew school didn't meet. The girls went 3 days a week in that time. Boys went 5 days a week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Girls went 3 days, and so they were looking for a leader who could come on one of the other days. So at that point, I ceased to be a brownie leader.
Was there anything specific about what you did as a brownie leader at the JEA that was different maybe than in a different troop because you had some Jewish girls?
I don't recall that there was anything different. I don't recall doing anything particularly Jewish. Maybe I should have, but I don't recall. Other than when, for example, we went to a program at, I think, the gas company or the electric company sponsored, and they were going to provide a snack or lunch or something like that. And I had to make certain that it was food, that was acceptable to anybody who kept kosher.
Growing up at the JEA, there were always activities. There was after school, Hebrew. At the time your children were participating in those kinds of programs, were they at the JEA or they mostly were at the synagogue?
Oh, they went to programs at the JEA. I had a bit of a problem. We lived in Magnolia Park, and my children went to Juliet Low Elementary School. I don't know what. I remember it got out at a certain time, whether it was 3 or 3:30, whatever, and the JEA started their activities at something like, I don't know, 2:30 or whatever. Maybe it was 3 o'clock when the children from the day school got out of school. And I said, well, my children can't possibly get there that early. They have to come home from school and get in the car and go and maybe use the bathroom and have a snack before they leave. And they said, well, we have to start it early, because if we don't start it when those children get out of school, then they will leave and they won't come back. And I said, I think my children who go to public school need the JEA activities more than the people who are in a Jewish school all day long. But they didn't look at it that way. And so there were activities that we were not were able to go to.
It's very interesting because I've heard a lot of, from different eras, where the JEA, which really is supposed to be the catch-all for the Jewish community, really has not fulfilled its promise in terms of being everything for everybody. What is the best thing you've ever attended over at the Jewish Community Center? And what is the best social service program that you think the whole Jewish community as a whole has participated in?
I don't know. I think that would take some thought. I haven't.
Okay.
I can't think right off the top of my head.
Have you found that you tend to make friends that were from your husband's work, from your life with your kids, from the synagogue, or from the community center, or another source entirely?
I don't know. I think my initial friendships were with my neighbors, who largely went to the temple. Jane Kahn and Kate Cole and Clara Levy and Gloria Caslow were all very close neighbors, and they all went to the temple. And then, spread out from there. And I don't know.
What did you like about living in Savannah? Is there anything you liked about living in Savannah in particular?
Yeah, I like it. I don't know. It's easy to get around.
It's easy to get around. Okay.
I learned the concepts of north, south, east, and west, which I didn't know so much in Atlanta, because you start off on a street in Atlanta going in one direction and suddenly the street is going totally different. Now I know where I am, because everything is east, west, north, south, which is a convenience. I don't know. I've been happy in Savannah.
You've been happy in Savannah?
Yeah. Actually, I always said I'll be totally happy when they have a Rich's department store in Savannah. And in before long, one finally came. Alas, it's gone. But
I had a friend who used to talk about shopping on Broughton Street and wearing gloves to go shopping. By the time you would have moved to Savannah, I think most people would have, shopped at Fine's department store, and maybe Lady Jane and some of the other Jewish-owned businesses as well. What was shopping like when you moved here in the late 50s and early 60s?
I enjoyed Vines like anybody else because they had wonderful sales, and I would always go to the sales. But the children's department left something to be desired. I remember the children's shops were Jewish owned and very nice, but for example, I wanted a plain white cardigan sweater for a little girl to wear when she went to shul, and it was air conditioned and she needed something a little to go with whatever she was wearing. I couldn't find a plain white cardigan sweater. Everything was cute and decorated. It had a ruffles, it had an applique. I needed a place like Belk or Sears that had some everyday, just ordinary, plain things that could go with any outfit.
So did you find that you didn't really shop in Savannah? Did you
No,
go
I
back
shopped
to
there.
Atlanta
I
to
just
shop?
couldn't always find what I
what you
wanted.
When you were going to shul over the years, the Agudath Achim synagogue has had an awful lot of rabbis. Have you found that there's a different style in the last, since you came in 56 to now? I don't know, there must have been like at least 15 separate rabbis in your time here that have had tenure. Have you noticed a significant difference in the way Judaism is practiced in your shul?
I haven't. I'm not that much of a synagogue goer, and I don't have an answer for that.
If it's not too difficult for you, can you tell me some of the things that you got to do because your husband had significant leadership roles in his professional life?
Something that I got to do.
Yeah. Did you get to meet certain people? Or I know he was active in civil rights. I know he was a lawyer. Did you get to socialize with different groups of people that maybe you would not have met? Did you ever participate in the civil rights movements yourself as part of maybe what you were doing or part of what he was doing?
I'm not thinking of anything to answer that question. I went on one occasion with Betty Malava to hear Martin Luther King speak at a church, and I don't remember which church it was, but we did go and we did hear him.
Was it unusual for a Jewish person to support the civil rights movement in your experience?
I don't know of a lot of supporters. Abe Odess was one. He was a cousin, and of course Bill Wexler. But no, I know names of other white men in the community who were active, but I can't think of a lot of Jewish ones.
Were you active in B'nai B'rith Women or in Hadassah or in Workman's Circle or in Harmony Club?
I was active in B'nai B'rith Women in Hadassah.
Did you ever take leadership roles, or what was your favorite activity to do with the women?
There was a Brandeis Women's Club.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Would you tell me?
It existed for a few years, and they used to have interesting study sessions. I guess the materials must have been supplied by the university. I remember taking an art history class that Brandeis Women offered.
Where did you host your meetings?
I don't recall whether it was the JEA or not. Speaking of,
Yeah.
one thing that occurred to me is that the JEA used to have a lot of classes in the daytime. They had art classes, and then they kind of stopped having them. And I asked why they were not having them anymore, and the answer was they needed the space for the school to exist there. And so they had things at night, which I didn't choose to go to, because I felt like at night I'm supposed to be home with my children doing homework or whatever I'm needed for at home with my family. So I had enjoyed the daytime activities, which ceased to exist.
I also enjoyed daytime activities, but I also found that the answers that I got was that a lot of those activities had stopped because more and more women were working.
Yes, this
and
is
that
true. I did
there
hear
weren't
that
enough
too.
there weren't enough people to sustain classes.
Well, they also said they needed the space for the school.
Did you find that a lot of your friends were women who worked or women who did not work outside the home during the day?
I think my friends mostly did not work.
And did they have help at the house?
I think everybody did.
Did you have friends that had nannies specifically that worked with their children, or mostly housekeepers that worked with their house?
Well, I think one generally had a housekeeper who would watch the children when you went away. I wouldn't have called them nannies. They weren't coming just to take care of children.
In all of your time in Savannah, what is the one memory you have of your favorite thing to do, or your favorite thing you got to do because you lived in Savannah? Is there anything like that? Your favorite place in Savannah?
One thing I enjoyed doing was going to Armstrong for a number of years in the 65 plus program. I think I went for 6 years, and I took art history and applied art, clay classes, acrylics, watercolor, whatever. I enjoyed that very much.
I know a lot of people who have told me about that, but I believe that they also don't. They don't have those classes anymore. Am I correct?
You know, I had heard that they didn't, and I asked somebody else, and they said they did. I haven't investigated because I'm not ready to think about it right now, but I was told that yes, they do.
What's the difference in lifestyle living out on Tybee, even as a visitor, and living in town?
Well, I'm living in town now, and I find it so convenient because if I'm invited to do something, I can say, who from this neighborhood is going? And I can either pick that person up or they'll pick me up, and I have company, particularly if it's going downtown at night. At Tybee, I had friends, but not the same number of friends that I could call on. And of course, in the wintertime, the number went down even more drastically.
Were you ever in Savannah during a hurricane or an
No.
evacuation?
Oh, one evacuation, yes, I think it was Floyd. And at that time, we had a condominium at the Lafayette, which used to be the old telephone company building, and the rumor was that it was very sturdily constructed, and we always had decided that if there was a hurricane, we would go there. And when Floyd came along, that was our intention, and that was our intention, and that was our intention. And they kept, the hype on the television was, get out, get out, get out. So we finally got out, and of course, nothing happened. I think it hit in South Carolina.
Your children don't live in Savannah.
No.
Why did they not choose to make their homes here? Did it have more to do with opportunities, professional opportunities, or family?
I think it was a question largely, for the girls at least, they met someone who lived up north and chose to live up north because that person was around. But I think it mainly was because they were in schools that put them in contact with people who were involved there. As for my son, he had previously worked for the Savannah Morning News, and he had to move as opportunities presented itself, and then he went to Columbia Journalism School, and then he was able to get more interesting jobs in the New York area.
As a woman, did you ever feel like you didn't have as many opportunities as your male friends? Did you ever participate in the women's movement or through any of the organizations you joined?
No, I was perfectly happy with status quo. That doesn't speak well for me, but it's true.
No, in fact, everyone created a life that fulfilled them. And so the next question is, did you find life in Savannah, for whatever it is that you needed, fulfilling while you were living here all these years.
Yeah. That's,
What is the one piece of advice you would give to any young person, but specifically a Jewish young person, about how to find their future?
I don't think I have any advice.
Is there something
I
that
don't think I, had any great accomplishments, or I had no great goals. It was always my thought to be a wife and a mother, and that's what I did. And yeah, I think I did a decent job of that. But I wasn't looking. I admire women who go out and do things. I'm very much impressed with the things that my daughter-in-law and my daughters have done. But that was not a goal of mine.
That's wonderful. That's very well said. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to answer?
But no.
No?
Okay.
Thank you very much for participating. I've spoken to Kay Cole, and I think Diane knows I'm doing this. If you talk to any of your friends
About this? Oh, did you say